What's up everybody, I'm Jesse, this is my garage, here's all the projects, and today that's exactly what we're going to talk about is projects and how to plan for a successful project on your project car, or maybe even your daily driver. First thing we want to talk about when we're talking about planning out our project is what is the overall goal of the car and what are we looking to accomplish. That way we're not just throwing a bunch of parts out there that don't really matter or don't go with each other or maybe don't work that great and we're actually making our car worse, or worse yet, we're just going in all different directions and not one system is getting any better. So what is our goal? I mean, probably for the most part, I'd say people just to have a street car. That's pretty cool looking, right? So what does that entail? Well, number one, right, if we're gonna just have a nice street car, or if we're gonna have a track car, or if we're gonna have anything, is we need to have the ride quality good. So we probably need to plan for something like that, depending on the car, older, newer, blah, 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 looking at kind of the quality and does anything need maintenance. Number two, the second thing we want to talk to once we have our goal in place and we've kind of looking at, we can start seeing down the road a little bit more. Honestly, what is the money factor? We need to be honest with ourselves and how much money do we have to sink into the project? What's the best usage of our money to go towards getting to that goal? So, I mean, do we want a lot of horsepower? Is that our goal? So what's going to be the most efficient use of money to make horsepower? Or are we trying to make it look really cool? So probably like bodywork, aero, paint, wheels, tires, maybe some coilovers, something like that. Is that what we want to do? And we necessarily don't care about the horsepower gains or, maybe an aftermarket exhaust or something like that. We're going for a little bit more of the aesthetics. So what is the goal? Where are we going to put our money efficiently? And what we don't want to do is, we all have it. I do it all the time. We got our, we want to build this. We're going to put a whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it might not make sense to go after like, oh, I'm going to put huge turbos on my car. It's going to cost me $6,000 in turbos and all this stuff. But I don't necessarily have $6,000 just to blow. So maybe I want to spend, $4,500 or $2,500 or whatever the budget is and use that money more efficiently. So I would say definitely for a project car, a big thing to factor in is money. And then the second thing, or another thing we need to factor in is, of course, the time. Are we putting in all the work? Are we doing all the labor? Are we having somebody else do it? Well, there goes back into money because now you're paying for somebody else's time. But if you're going to do everything, realistically, what time frame do you have for yourself to get the project done? And then what time frame do you allow yourself to work on the project? So if you work 40 hours a week, we'll just say that. It could be more, it could be less. And then like myself, I have a family, have to make sure we give them appropriate time too. You have a family outside of it, you have a girlfriend, you have a boyfriend, whatever you have going on, you need to allow extra time for that as well, or maybe not, maybe race car and it's all good. That's all good too. Trust me, it's all good. So, but what does our time schedule look like? We don't want to tear apart a car, tear apart something that was working in the first place, and then never put the time to put it back together, or didn't realize how much time it takes to get everything going back together. Because even the stuff you see on my channel, the stuff you see on other people's channel, all the project stuff, it is such a small amount of time on how much time it actually took to do all that work. Just disassembly, cleaning, preparation. Like if you're watching my channel right now and you're watching the vlog videos, we are working on the rear suspension of this car right here, the 300ZX. And we're doing some other stuff too. Like I'm helping my brother with his Miata, all this stuff. But it has literally been two weeks. It'll be 2 weeks this Friday. You'll see this video probably on Thursday, so you'll probably see it almost on Friday. And, you know, we've got the bushing, we got it dropped, we got the suspension dropped, we got the bushings out of there, but we're still prepping everything. It takes a long time to do all this stuff. It's time consuming, but I'll have a video together that'll be probably 10 minutes and it'll show the time period over a 3-week time period, 2-week time period or whatever. And you'll see it within 10 minutes, but it actually took a lot more time to prep that. So what is your time? How much time do you have it put into it? And then what is your long-term time plan? Like 6 months, I want it XYZ paint and blah, 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 whatever you have. You're just making goals to make your project go as smoothly as possible for when you don't get burned out, get frustrated, you know, go on Facebook Marketplace right now and look at all the project cars that somebody just didn't take the time, ran out of time, ran out of money, and they're selling off. I mean, they're all over there all the time. So if you plan that stuff out for yourself, you'll know it'll be a much better experience for you. Another thing we want to talk about is, okay, we have our financial budget set for what project we're going to do. And, you know, the financial budget, that might be, okay, financial budget for our coilovers, financial budget for our brake setup, financial budget for our suspension. And I'm just saying that because that's the way I build cars. That's what we're working on this car right now. So we have each section there. Then we have our timeline. What are we going to do for timeline for the front? What are we going to do for timeline for the rear? What are we going to do for timeline for XYZ? Now, the third thing on the list is, what is our skill level at? You know, a project car can be a great way to learn skills. I've been working on project cars for a long time now. And that's, you know, that's how I kind of learned. I did go to school for auto mechanics. I was in the Army for automotive technician, but that was way after I already knew. So I have some training too, but I started out working on project cars. My very first project car was like a 78 BMW 325, maybe, if that was it. Some hunk of junk, something or other. It was kind of cool. I mean, I look back and it's kind of a cool car, but the real first project car I had was an FB like 81 RX-7. Bought it as a shell. I think I was like 17 or 18 at the time, and found a 12A rotary motor, put it in. But project car is a great way to learn skills that you might not have, but also we don't want to, you know, try to rebuild that rotary engine unless we're really confident about our ability, our knowledge, our work environment, our tools, which is going to bring me to the next one, that we're going to be able to complete that project. Because I'm going to tell you right now, it is easier to take something apart than it might be to put it back together. And if you're not organized, it can be a nightmare. If you watch some of my other videos, I talk about organization. I'll give you little tips like this guy right here. That is literally a muffin tray. I use it for bolt separation. Bag and tag, Ziploc bags with a Sharpie. That one, just little tricks and tips to keep everything organized. And for the most part, I know in some of my videos we'll be taking stuff apart and it'll get a little bit messy, but I mean, for the most part, I try to keep my work area pretty clean, because one thing I can't stand is stuff all over the place, tripping over stuff, can't walk, nowhere to put items. So try to keep everything organized, that too. So going back to our skill, we want to, if we don't necessarily have the skills to, you know, rebuild the bearings on the crank and make sure everything's there, let's work up to that and not start pulling out a motor out of a car that already works and we can drive it because we think we need to rebuild it. We might not be there yet. So know your skill level to know your project level. Keep your experience, your project car experience, in a much better situation. Another thing I want to talk about, kind of touched on the last one, was organization. Anytime you start to take apart a project car or do a project, even if it's something simple as, you know, installing coilovers, whatever it is, keep everything organized. Once it's all organized, then it can go back on the car so much easier. As the time I'm filming this right now, another major YouTuber that you probably watch, TJ Hunt, just put the wide body on his Lambo. And if you watch his videos, he bags and tags all the bolts to go back in place and transfers everything over. So organization, I'm not just talking about it here, everybody uses it. If you want to be successful in project car, organization and cleanliness, just keeping stuff organized. We're not talking about sanitizing everything, but I'm just talking about keeping your work area free from, you know, trip hazards for one, but also too, making you want to be out there too. If it's just a disaster, parts are everywhere, you got bolts scattered everywhere, you're probably not going to want to hang out in that environment. But if it's clean, you got a place for all your stuff, you got to put away, you've got it bagged and tagged, you know what everything goes, you're going to be more confident in the job you're doing. All right, and kind of the last thing I want to touch, this is just a quick couple tips on how to keep your build, you know, successful, what to do to plan for a project car. Know the tools that you're going to need to complete that job. Like, I love Nissan cars, 90s Nissan cars, and maybe some early 2000s like the 350Z, even the 370Z is super cool. Great cars, but they all use 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter, 14 millimeter, 17 millimeter, and then we can get into like 18 and 19, maybe 22 on some of the suspension parts. But those are the sizes that we're gonna need to work on that car. Now, if you wanna go over to, and that's probably most Japanese cars, and then of course you got your American cars with all, actually most of it's now, I think turned metric anyways, but some of the older stuff you've got, you know, your 9/16, whatever, half inch, all that stuff too. And you know what tools you're gonna need for the most part to accomplish the job. But once you get over to like the European market, need Torx, need more Allens to take some of that stuff apart. They don't want you messing with it. Let's be honest. They're some of the most expensive cars to maintenance because they want you to take it to the dealer. They can be cool, but they can also be a huge headache. So know what tools you're going to need to complete the job. Now that's just kind of hand tools, basic stuff you're gonna throw in a socket, but also as we go up and we do other stuff, because if you're watching my video series right now on the 300ZX, we're doing rear suspension. So a lot of that stuff is pressed in. So we need different pullers. We need ball joint separators. We need, I have a press that we got just to press in and out bushings and bearings and all this stuff. I have to separate a wheel bearing and from the wheel hub, and we have to press that stuff apart and then press it back together. So without a press, it's not happening. So that's just another tool we need. Also, if you watch some of my install videos, you see that I use air tools, especially to take apart like exhausts or even suspensions. It comes apart much more quickly, and you're gonna have a much better experience working on your car if you have the correct air tools or impact guns or what have you to work on your car, instead of sitting here fighting a bolt for 15 minutes that I took off in 15 seconds because, or somebody took off in 15 seconds because they had the right tool, versus trying to fight a bolt. And that's just not any fun, especially if you're on jack stands and outside and maybe it's cold because it's wintertime right now, or maybe, you know, you have to work on it in the dirt. So you're in the dirt, maybe the car's been sitting, it's full of spider webs. Who knows what you're gonna find underneath there. So having the right tools helps so much. And doing a little bit of research beforehand can definitely make the difference and make the experience so much better for you. All right, real quick, I'll wrap this up. One more thing I want to touch about is, you know, before it's like I said earlier, it's really easy to tear something apart than sometimes it is to put it back together. And this can go for preparation. Like, I don't like to tear something apart unless I have all the parts that I know I need to put it back together. And not, oh, I'll pull it apart now and then I'll order the parts. Well, something might come up down the road and I might not have the money to order the parts, and now I have a car that's tore up, can't drive it, can't fix it, and it's in a worse state than it was when I started it. So planning out that can be a game changer and change your product. Have all the parts that you need. And I know sometimes we get really excited, like, oh, I just got new coilovers in and I really want to install those. But I mean, coilovers are pretty self-sufficient. They'd pretty much change a thing. But let's say some new suspension parts, because that's what we're working on, or even maybe it is a new turbo or something like that. Like, let's say I got a new turbo and I want to put it on. Well, did you get the new lines? Do you have everything that goes together to make that system work? You don't want to fight the old stuff or be missing gaskets and maybe like, man, I'm missing my inlet gasket, but I'm just going to try and reuse the old one because I'm in a hurry and I'm so excited and I was trying to save $5 and, or it's on back order and I just want to put these on right now. And then you have a leaking intake. It's like, why did you do, like, you have a leaking intake gasket, making your car maybe not run or perform as good as it was. You have to go back and fix it. So if you can make sure you have all your gaskets in place, all the parts that you need in place to make it a successful reinstallation, reassembly, and then keep your project car on the road, off the jack stands, and enjoyable for you for years to come. Now, I had this problem. I did this. I've done this stuff. That's how come I know. I've done this. I had a freaking 90s Nissan 240SX Coupe that I really love. That's one of the cars that I'm so sad that I ended up selling. I really wish I would have kept that car, especially for what I paid for it and how much those cars go for and how hard they are to find right now. But that was a car when I was like, hey, I'm gonna replace the valve stem seals and I'm gonna put a new timing chain on it just because I'm already in there and I'm gonna do it. Well, I didn't have the timing chain and I started tearing everything apart. Stuff happened. I ended up joining the Army. I went and did that thing for a while. My car just sat. Now, it was perfectly running, perfectly fine. Now, it smoked, but it was perfectly fine before I tore it all apart. But then it just sat, tore it all apart until finally somebody offered me a laughable amount of money. I'm so... But at the time, it was okay. I didn't care. I wasn't working on that car. I was doing other stuff in my life. I was like, all right, I'll take that money, reinvest it somewhere else. You can have the car. And long story short, I wish I would have never taken that car apart. I wish I would have just left it until put an RB25 or an RB20, because that's what I would do right now today. If I had a 240SX that needed a motor, I would just put an RB20 in it because they're badass. They're the cheapest of the RBs right now because RB25s have lost their mind. RB26s have always been expensive. I would put an RB20 in a 240 if I had one today. But that's not what we're talking about. But I wish I would have just left it together. Could have run the single jingle. It still would have been smoking. That car would still run today. I would probably still have it in my collection. And who knows where it would be at. But I sold it because I didn't have all the parts. I took it apart because it's easier to take it apart than it is to put it back together. Other stuff came up in my life. And then that's what happened. So learn from my mistake. Keep your project car running, keep it happy, keep enjoying it, and keep learning from it because that's the number one thing. You will learn skills from working on all kinds of aspects of your project car. Well, I hope this video isn't too long. I hope you got something out of this video. There's plenty of good tidbits in there. Use what you can, discard what you can't. Leave me a comment below. Tell me some experiences you've had. What's something we could add to the list? What's something we could take off the list? Whatever. Hit me in a comment below what you think about and keeping the plan efficient, simple, not burning out on your project car, and getting mad and leaving it on the jack stands or selling it to somebody else. Well, thank you so much for watching. Head over to our Patreon page. You can get some cool merch. We've got some stickers there. Anybody that signs up on Patreon, we will be throwing you down a sticker. I'll send it out myself. We have them coming in. As soon as they get in, I will show them. They're pretty cool. Retro JDM style. Also, and the links are in the description for a lot of the builds for this car, for that car right there. Some stuff for the Tundra and probably the 350Z. But if you want to see what parts I'm running on all these cars, and the list is going to continue to grow. I'm sure I forgot stuff. It is putting this list is kind of whatever, but go check the links below for a list of pretty much the parts that are on these cars, and you can see what I'm running. GK Tech's on there, a bunch for suspension parts. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you. Oh yeah, follow Instagram at Build Theory. Hopefully I'll put it earlier in the video as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.